Welcome in to Inside Carolina Postgame Live. The Tar Heels have just fallen to the Pittsburgh Panthers 30-23 in overtime to fall to 5-5 on the season. I believe 3-4 in the ACC. UNC's been eliminated from the Coastal race. Tough game, one overtime. Pitt scored the touchdown. UNC failed to connect in overtime. They fall. This is Inside Carolina Postgame Live. I'm your host, Ross Martin, joined by our new host here, subbing in for Sean. We have Mike Ingersoll, UNC offensive tackle from 2006-2010. What's up, Mike?
What's going on, Ross?
Not much. We just watched the game with a bunch of guys here. Again, this is brought to you by Blue Shark Vodka, the smoothest vodka in the world, and Jimmy's Famous Seafood. They ship to anywhere in the U.S. We'll talk about more about our sponsors later. Mike, initial thoughts on this game?
Offensive line corrected a lot of things. Offense obviously started slow, played substantially better in the second half. Defense, I think, was a story of this game, holding Pitt scoreless until overtime in the second half. First half obviously was not pretty. Second half was a clinic. Unfortunately, just a little bit too short.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what Jay Bateman has to say on Monday because they made some sort of adjustments because it was 17-0 to start the game. At halftime, it was 23-7, and Pitt didn't score again until overtime. They were held scoreless in the second half, allowed for UNC to come back with some miraculous throws. Antoine Green, some other touchdowns, and
great run by Ty Chandler.
And then the run by Sam to score, I believe, the last touchdown. I thought this game was out of hand in the first half, and it was because UNC couldn't get anything cooking on offense, and Pitt was scoring, and the defense was not stopping them. It was a complete kind of story of two halves as well. Cool. All right, we're gonna get into the three plays of the game. Then we'll do players of the game, and then takeaways. And as we go into it, so I thought, let's pull up the old screen here. Three plays of the game. Multiple moments in the game where it was huge moments that kind of changed the structure of the game. In the third quarter, there was a huge fourth down stop by Pitt there. No, by Pitt on Sam Howell and UNC. Sam ran and was stopped at fourth down. Mm-hmm. Those kind of things are huge in stocking momentum. What did you think about that play?
Obviously a turnover on downs. I thought it killed momentum. It's another example where Carolina in short yardage just is not very good. And we weren't very good tonight. We haven't been very good all season. Frankly, we haven't been very good for a couple of years now. But we always had, and I've talked about this before on other podcasts, we've always had Michael Carter, we've always had Javonte Williams to sort of make up for some of our shortcomings in the short yardage situations. Tonight, obviously, we didn't have that. We haven't had that all year, and it really showed up. I think short yardage and penalties were really the story of this game.
And what's crazy, we were writing down these plays of the game, and UNC was losing. We thought we might have to do a show about a blowout or a game where UNC lost in regulation. UNC tied it and was able to push into overtime, so kind of the plays of the game changed. Second play of the game, I thought, was the touchdown to Antoine Green in the third quarter, I believe, or at least the second half, that really changed the dynamic of the game. Antoine Green had he's becoming more of a threat for UNC. What did you think about that touchdown? He got hurt in his head right there, and came down with the ball.
Well, sometimes those wide open catches are well, you're talking about the touchdown where he had his helmet knocked off. Antoine obviously had a big game tonight, 3 catches, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. The first touchdown wide open is what got Carolina on the board. That sometimes those wide open catches are the hardest ones to make, and you maybe requires a little extra concentration from time to time. Antoine obviously made that catch. The catch in the end zone where his helmet got knocked off, another concentration play. The kind of thing that really only comes with experience, with game reps. Antoine really showed real improvement in terms of his concentration, his ability to come in on a tough contested throw, score the touchdown, huge play in the game.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about him because he's obviously one of our players of the game. Like Mike said, 3 catches, 108 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Third play of the game, one of the biggest ones that allow UNC to come back and tie the game, was the Gimmel interception late in the fourth quarter. Huge play. In last game it was Cam Kelly's interceptions would help UNC get back in the game against Wake Forest. Today it was Jeremiah Gimmel, the interception there. What did you see on that play that kind of changed the structure of the fourth quarter, especially late, and allow UNC to score the tying touchdown?
Jeremiah Gimmel's a guy that doesn't get enough credit, both I think in our local press and in the national media too. He is an absolute ball player, and he's been a ball player for several years now, and he is productive every single week. And you could clearly see when he came in, obviously, he had to start the game late because of the targeting penalty last week. However you feel about the targeting penalty, the consequence was that he just didn't start the game for us. And there was a clear lag early on in the game when Jeremiah wasn't in there. That leadership really shone through, that veteran savvy that he has. I mean, he's played a lot of football. He's made a lot of big plays. This was just another one of those big plays. This team is better when Jeremiah Gimmel is on the field, and you see why.
And again, we're going to talk about him as well as one of our players of the game. But like you said, Gimmel has not had maybe the best season as we expected. Comes up big with the interception, which allowed UNC to stay in the game. They end up losing the game 30-23. Get your questions in. We got Producer John. It's a special episode. We have Producer John. We have Pat Stats from Twitter, Pat James. And shout out to Ori watching in, former UNC SID. We had a crowd here watching the game at Inside Carolina offices. Get your questions in on Facebook and on YouTube. First, I want to talk to you about Blue Shark Vodka, the smoothest vodka in the world. It's founded and created in Wilmington, North Carolina, Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, and one of the partners of this company is former UNC kicker Connor Barth. You played with Connor, right?
I did play with Connor.
Yeah, yep. Producing some great vodka, sponsoring this show. Made with North Carolina sweet corn, mellowed for 28 days, smooth, versatile, accessibly priced, and available in all 100 counties in North Carolina. Blue Shark Vodka, go check it out. We've been drinking at tailgates. It's great for light and fruity drinks. Mix it up with some ginger beer for a nice ginger cocktail. Blue Shark Vodka, smoothest vodka in the world, sponsoring Inside Carolina. They're local, so sponsor the local companies and help them help us.
What's your favorite light and fruity drink, Ron?
I like to go a little seltzer water, like a little LaCroix or something like that, and then you add a splash of pineapple.
Little Pampanoose and some pineapple.
Yeah, and any kind of fruit juice, and it's just light, it's easy, goes down smooth. Blue Shark Vodka, all 100 North Carolina counties. That's pretty cool stuff for a local vodka company. Questions? Any questions right now, John? All right, Producer John. Late night here in the studios.
We've got our first question tonight on YouTube from Andrew Young. He says Hood should be in on short yardage. But, Mike, you made some good points earlier. Share with the viewers, what are you seeing on UNC's short yardage situations? What could UNC be doing better?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think that it's a running back situation. I think it's an offensive line situation. And it's not that the offensive line's getting out schemed as in terms of there's just too many people and they're stacking the box. It's that we're not getting up to our second level assignment. So we're losing on the first level. We're not getting movement on the defensive line. And we're having a hard time because of that getting up to the second level on those linebackers. And those linebackers are the ones that are typically making the plays. When the front side linebackers aren't the ones making the plays, the other issue we're having is backside defensive ends are scraping down the line of scrimmage. They're the ones making the plays. Overall, our short yardage capacity is limited. To put it mildly.
And I think we're going to talk a lot about offensive line. Mike played offensive line at UNC. We're going to get into that in depth here in our takeaways as well. I thought the big kind of change in the game, I don't think it ended up hurting UNC as much, but when Josh Downs had that long catch, John, what was the time wasted on the goal line? Oh, John wrote on the board here. Downs caught the ball at the 8:37 mark, and UNC didn't score into the 5:34 mark. Was that the same Howell touchdown? I'm not sure. Got Pat Stats on it. Bad radio here.
That was Sam reaching over the goal line. Yeah.
And then the next thing they scored, it was Gimmel interception and then the field goal. Yeah. That was a lot of wasted time. Who knows what could have happened with more time there. It just shows they are struggling on the on short yardage situations. With the Caleb Hood thing, he's been injured. He hasn't played in 4 or 5 games, and I think they're kind of saving his red shirt. I think he's played in 4 games, maybe 3. So maybe he'll play against Wofford if it's only 3 games, but I agree. They need a power back. They're not getting that, and Sam Howell's kind of turned into that second running back almost.
He really has, and Caleb Hood's going to be a good player in the future. His dad obviously was a great player here. So I think Caleb's got a bright future for Carolina. They're probably just, like you said, wanting to save him, save that red shirt, and get as much eligibility out of him as possible.
They're rolling with Ty Chandler and DJ Jones, and next year they're getting George Pettaway and Amarion Hampton. I think those guys will be impact players for UNC on the recruiting trail. All right, let's get into our 3 players of the game. We've already mentioned many of them. We'll start with Antoine Green, see if Mike can come with some more takeaways on him. Again, Antoine Green's emerged as a solid deep threat and a solid outside receiver for UNC. 3 catches for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, the players of the game actually is going to be brought to you by Jimmy's Famous Seafood. We'll talk more about them after this segment. Antoine Green, anything else you can say about him and his emergence and what he's done, maybe what he's added to this offense?
Yeah, so Antoine he's got all the tools. He's big. He's big in terms of size. He's tall in terms of height. He can run, and he can catch when his concentration is there. And Antoine's one of those guys who just needed reps and he needed opportunities. He is a perfect example of something that I talked about last week actually on a podcast with Taylor and EJ. And that is Sam Howell has been asked this season to take on a much bigger role and carry this offense while these younger guys who are relatively inexperienced after we lost all that offense from last year. We lose Daz Newsome, we lose De'Ami Brown. That's a lot of catches, that's a lot of game experience. These younger guys, though they had some game experience themselves, they needed to come along. And Sam, the player, being the player that he is, was able to carry that load for a few weeks while these guys came along. Antoine Green is the beneficiary of Sam being able to carry that load. While Sam was essentially the offense for all these weeks, a guy like Antoine Green was clearly developing. He was taking his practice reps, he was taking mental reps, and he was taking advantage of the game reps he had. And what you've seen now is recently, the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, he's become a much more reliable impact player for Carolina, both catching the ball and also blocking. Another thing he doesn't get a lot of credit for is watch him on the outside. When he's not catching passes and he's not open in space and making big plays for us in the pass game, he's making big plays in the run game and in the short pass game by blocking guys out on the perimeter and getting extra yards.
And I think his confidence has gotten better in each game as he improved. We have a Pat Stat new segment. Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about Antoine Green, the last 3 weeks now through today, averaging 4.6 catches for 91.3 yards. He has 4 touchdowns over the last 3 games, and before that, he had 4 career touchdowns entering that Notre Dame game.
It seems like every catch he has is going for 50 yards.
Exactly. Was it 41 yards per catch, something like that? So that's a huge big play potential, and that's 3 straight games with a touchdown, Antoine Green. Second player of the game, already mentioned him, Jeremiah Gimmel. 10 tackles, season high 10 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 interception, 1 pass breakup. That's that's padded stats. That's your Theo Pinson Pat stat right there, padding the stat line. Jeremiah Gimmel, huge sack, huge interception, kind of changed the game, allowed UNC to get in position to tie the game with the field goal all over the field as a middle linebacker, and you saw how important he is. He seemed to be in the right place at the right time throughout the game.
Yeah, absolutely, and he typically is in the right place at the right time. That's because he's a guy that he's a very smart player and he clearly prepares. And the other thing that fans should pay attention to with Jeremiah Gimmel is just like Chaz Surratt. Jeremiah Gimmel is a guy that blitzes with purpose. That 1 sack and those tackles for loss, those are the result of his ability to blitz with purpose. He's not out there just flying around hitting people. He knows where he's going. He understands the reason why he's blitzing where he's blitzing, and he knows what he has to do to get there. And even when he's not making the play, he's disrupting the opposing offense enough to where somebody else is able to make the play. He really is an impact player, a real football concepts guy. You can see it on the field. He takes the film room to the field better than any player we have on defense right now.
And our third player of the game is quarterback Sam Howell. Honorary mention to Josh Downs, who had 8 catches for 95 yards. I think we have a Pat stat for Josh Downs. We'll come back to that. Sam Howell, 22 for 33 for 296 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He rushed the ball 17 times for 28 yards. Obviously, a lot of those were sack yards. It took away from his. He had some big runs, but he had so many sacks that kind of decreased the amount of yards. Thing about him, not an amazing game to continue his passing touchdown record. It's the longest in the college football. I think he's had a touchdown pass in every single game he's played in. But his toughness, he took so many hits. Your thoughts on just him taking so many hits and his toughness?
Well, I can't say too many good things about Sam Howell because people like Brian Chacos will call me out for it. But I will tell you that Sam Howell, when you talk about toughness, he is the model for what you want a quarterback to be. Yeah. No matter what's thrown at him, no matter how many hits he takes, no matter how many bad series he may have or the offense may have, this is a guy who always comes back and you always feel like you have a chance to win with a guy like that. And frankly, it's because he'll put his head down, he'll go out there and do what he needs to do to win the football game. Tonight was just another example of that. Taking big hits, bruised, cut. Jersey is the dirtiest of anybody on the field, doing everything he can to win the game. Even if that's not throwing the ball, obviously this is a year where he reinvented himself, started using his legs to put us in a position to win games. Sam Howell is a winner, and I think tonight was just more examples of that. Likely
2 more regular season games for Sam Howell, probably 3 games including a bowl. He likely leaves after his junior season.
Also, don't expect Sam Howell to play in that bowl game, everybody. Just going to go ahead and put that out there.
That's a good point. I haven't thought about that yet. Josh Downs, honorary player of the game. Pat, do you have a stat for Josh Downs with his catches?
Yeah, Josh Downs finishing today 8 catches for 95 yards. That's the 9th time in 10 games this season that Josh Downs has reached the 8-catch mark. Pretty incredible. And just adding to Sam Howell, by the way, 2 touchdown passes a night. He's now tied with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence for the 3rd most in ACC football history with 90 career touchdown passes.
Good company.
And he's had a passing touchdown, I think, is it 35 games? We'll check it out. Yeah, he's 35 games. Every game he's played in, he's thrown a touchdown pass. Get your questions in on Facebook and YouTube. We talk about Jimmy's Famous Seafood. Jimmy's Famous Seafood is a sponsor of Inside Carolina Podcast, the Vipless podcast, and also Inside Carolina Postgame Live. They ship to anywhere in the United States. Get crab dip, crabs, crab cakes, anything crab and seafood. Go to jimmysfamousseafood.com. They sponsor Armando Bacot. They sponsor Dawson Garcia. They sponsor Inside Carolina Podcast. They sponsor Inside Carolina Postgame Live. Just really huge Carolina fans up in Maryland that make great seafood, great crabs, and
great tweets.
Yeah, they'll tweet. They'll throw out some Duke hate every once in a while.
That Twitter feed is live, boy.
Yeah, so Jimmy's Famous Seafood. We love to support them, and hopefully you'll support them to support us. jimmysfamousseafood.com. They ship to anywhere in the United States. You're planning a party, holiday party. Maybe, hey, there's a turkey shortage. Get you some crab for Thanksgiving. A couple crab cakes up there, Ari, and you'll be good to go. Mix it up this Thanksgiving. jimmysfamousseafood.com. We have a question or two, John. All right, let's fire away, big dog.
This question is from Carrie on Facebook. Shout out to Carrie. He is a big commenter for us. He says, UNC had 12 penalties. Why is UNC not disciplined? Mike, from the player's perspective there what are you seeing on some of those penalties?
That is a loaded question. Why is UNC not disciplined? I am not a listen. I'm not a calling for coaches' jobs guy. I'm not a blame the coaching staff guy. What I will say is that penalties are concentration, and a lot of that does fall on the players. Tonight I made the comment while we were watching the game. They're playing in front of 1,700 people up there at Pittsburgh. This isn't a loud stadium. Okay, that's not a tough environment to play in. That's a concentration issue. And everybody's to blame for that. The coaching staff is to blame for that. The players are to blame for that. But I put a lot of blame on those players for penalties and miscues because there are so many guys with so much game experience. We got 50-year seniors. We got 60-year seniors. We got guys that got 40 starts under their belt. Those types of mistakes should not be happening.
And you look back, a couple that stand out. There was a defensive personal foul, and then the next play was a touchdown for Pittsburgh. I think even when UNC was trying to score a touchdown on the last drive in regulation, they settled for a field goal. There were a couple false starts that pushed UNC back. They're on the 1-yard line or something like that, and they got pushed back from a lot of penalties. And that's cost UNC in a couple games now on key moments in key games where they could have scored. I think in the Notre Dame game as well, they had points taken off the board because of penalties. So it's definitely not the most disciplined team we're dealing with.
Well, the reason why we also talk about the catch with Josh Downs at the 8:37 mark, and then we don't score. We ultimately score with Sam Howell barely getting the ball over the goal line at 5:34. The reason 3 minutes was eaten off that clock was because of penalties, and like you pointed out too, the very last possession we're going in to win the game. Penalties pull us out of the 2-yard line. Again, this is a short yardage problem. This is a concentration problem. Those types of situations can't happen. If you can have those penalties back there on the 2-yard line at the end of the game, we might be talking about a win right now instead of a loss.
There you go. All right, 3 question. All right, producer John, he runs the show.
We've got one more quick question. This is on YouTube from Kelly. He asks, why do we never get under center when we are inside the 5-yard line?
Yeah, that's what Wayne was complaining about.
Yeah,
it's a great point because you're getting the ball 5-6 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
It's how the offense is run, right?
It is. So, again, more gripes from me about short yardage situations. If we're 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, we're 1st and goal or 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. If we're in the shotgun, that 2nd and 1 turns into 6 yards to get 1 yard. And that, just from a mathematics standpoint, that's not efficient at all. And what really frustrates me as a fan and as a former player is that we've gone under center several times this season, and we've been successful doing it.
So we have. I didn't notice that.
We have gone under center, and we've been successful, either with quarterback sneaks or turning around and handing the ball off. We've been successful in that traditional pro-style under center offense. And down there in the red zone, that's the kind of thing where the field compresses. You got to compress your offensive formations, and we're not doing that.
Yeah, it just seems like they're way more comfortable and they're just used to doing a lot of their play sets out of that shotgun situation. That's my perspective on that. All right, let's go to 3 takeaways. We'll cut this for YouTube. Inside Carolina Postgame Live, 3 takeaways. First one is that second half comeback, Mike. The defensive adjustments, offense was clicking. The main thing I thought was how Jay Bateman's defense did something to inhibit Pitt's ability to move the ball and to score. Your thoughts on that second half comeback?
Penalties. Defense minimized penalties and essentially altogether eliminated them. The penalties in the second half were primarily on the offensive side of the ball. And if you look in the first half, we were giving up first downs due to stupid penalties. Defensive holding calls, pass interference calls, just boneheaded, unnecessary, and very untimely penalties on defense. We cut that out in the second half, and we were able to see what our defense was able to do.
I thought there was some timely, just big plays. You had a sack here by Tamon Fox, a sack there by Jeremiah Gimmel. You had the interception by Jeremiah Gimmel. There was more plays. I thought the defensive line also contained the pocket a little better and were able to make plays on Kenny Pickett. I mean, he was two different quarterbacks.
He really was.
He was slicing, dicing UNC in the first half. He was really contained in the second half. We have a Pat stat during the takeaways. Go ahead.
Yeah, also, I mean, a major difference in the ground game between the two teams, between the two halves. First half, Pittsburgh averages 4.4 yards per carry on 21 attempts, while UNC averaged 0.4 yards per carry on 15 attempts. In the second half, UNC improved to 3.6 yards per carry on 22 attempts, while Pitt only averaged 0.2 yards on 10 attempts.
So really reducing Pitt's ability to run the ball was huge. It's not like UNC did anything too special in offense. They scored more with the big plays from Josh Downs and from Antoine Green, but limiting Pitt's ability to run the ball, taking away that run game, making them one-dimensional, really helped UNC get back in the game. I thought that, like I said, I thought this game was over in the first half. So kudos to UNC for fighting. Offensive line, we got to talk about offensive line. We have Mike Ingersoll here, letterman at UNC. Your breakdown of offensive line from the first half to the second half. What do you think they did bad in the first half that kind of led to some of the issues, and maybe what do you see they fixed in the second half?
So in the first half, it was our one-on-one matchups. We weren't winning them at the tackle spot. With the interior guys, we were just not winning our one-on-one matchups at all. We were giving up too many sacks, and they were in bad situations. They were in situations where the defense had their ears pinned back. They knew we were throwing the ball. We knew we were throwing the ball, and we still couldn't manage to do what we needed to do to win our one-on-one matchups. In the second half, we cleaned a lot of that up. Again, I've complained and I've banged on this team and this offensive line for weeks and weeks and weeks over twist games. We had some issues with that in the first half. Second half, we cleaned it up. Second half, we also cleaned up our one-on-one matchups. I think that was ultimately the deciding factor in our ability to mount a comeback on offense. That plus, as you just heard, the running stats, 3.6 yards per carry versus 0.4 in the first half. While 3.6 is not efficient runs on average, that is enough of a threat for that Pitt defense to where they have to honor it, and it opened up things in the passing game.
And I thought they kept Sam much cleaner in the second half, and when he's given time, you saw it happen. The bomb to Antoine Green, the touchdown to Antoine Green, the bomb to Josh Downs. When Sam is given time, he's able to make those throws, step into it, he's not rushed, and they kept him clean a little bit better. For the game, though, 11 tackles for a loss by Pitt on UNC. And 5 sacks of Sam Howell. Felt like even more than that after watching the first half.
Can't win the game if you're going backwards.
Great point. All right, and the third takeaway, I think, is just UNC's resilience, their fight. This does relate to kind of second half comeback. But kudos to this team. I mean, it hasn't been the best season. They haven't lived up to expectations. But it was 17-0 at one point in this game. Everything was going Pitt's direction. I thought the fact they made some adjustments, and their fight and their inability to give up was huge. From a player perspective, what do you think about that?
Well, what the real benefit that you're going to see from this is in the future. And I don't like talking about what we have coming down the pike and down the road. But what you have here on this team is you have a ton of veteran leadership, and also a ton of young guys. There's a major gap in between. You got really young guys and really old guys on this team, and no one in between. Well, those really young guys, they've got a great example in those older guys like Jeremiah Gimmel, Sam Howell. The Fox brothers. Okay, they have examples of guys that have been through some stuff. They've seen losses. They've seen bad seasons. They've seen Orange Bowls. They've seen everything here. They've seen major preseason expectations and now a letdown in this season. And the one thing that has stayed constant is they've always stayed, all those older players have stayed even keel. They've done what they need to do to win. They're clearly preparing, whether that's translating onto the field on Thursdays and Saturdays. That's a week-to-week thing for us right now. But the one thing that isn't lacking is effort, determination, and a hard-nosedness is the verb I'll use. A hard-nosedness by guys like Jeremiah Gimmel, perfect example. You got young guys coming up behind him that are super talented. And young guys coming up behind a lot of these older players at key positions that are super talented, that have great examples to model themselves after.
Yeah, I mean, you give your hats off to the coaching staff and
Really?
these senior leaders for keeping that together, because a team like this could, it's November, and you could quit. There's only 2 games left. But this was a fun game to watch as a fan. I mean, you stayed into it. UNC was not expected to really go up to Pitt and get the win against Kenny Pickett. And they were there, and they tied up late in the fourth quarter and forced overtime. Kudos to them. I know it's not what fans wanted, getting a loss, because they had an opportunity to win. But the fight was there. It stayed in it. It was a 4-quarter game, which was fun to watch for fans. Any more questions, John? Get any more questions in on Facebook and YouTube as we close out here? No questions? Okay, John's giving me the tire on the road symbol. Let's go to what this loss, what this win/loss means. What does this loss mean for UNC? So they're 5-4.
Yeah.
They're 3-4 in the ACC. They're out of the Coastal race. Any takeaways from what this loss means for this season, for this team?
I mean, they've got to beat Wofford, which I think they're going to do. They're going to get to 6 games, or 6 wins, I should say. They're going to go to a bowl game. Really, it's just bowl positioning now. If you beat, you lose to a Pitt a week after you beat a top 10 Wake Forest team. You got number 16 NC State. Hopefully they win and they're ranked a little bit higher. You come in, you go into Raleigh and you beat State in Raleigh, and they're a highly ranked team. You've got 2 of your last 3 major games against ACC opponents. They're all ranked, and 2 of those 3 turn out to be wins. I say you end the season on a high note. This win, what I've seen from Carolina this season is when you have a bad loss or a tough loss like this, they typically follow it up with a pretty decent performance.
And this loss doesn't feel like Georgia Tech.
No, it doesn't.
Or Florida State. They came to play. They fought. They played. Defense looked great in the second half. They weren't expected to win. They didn't win. But you can go to Wofford, get a win, play a lot of young players, play some freshmen, some sophomores, and then the big showdown on Friday after Thanksgiving. NC State kind of hurt UNC State's season there. NC State has a huge game against Wake Forest on Saturday. So that's kind of where we are with UNC season. 2 games left, Wofford and Wake Forest. Sean Drone will be back next week with Wofford. Wrap up here. We want to thank our sponsors. Pat Stat, last minute.
Yeah,
all right.
I mean, a couple throwaways here. Obviously, as you said, I mean, this has just been a great series here between UNC and Pitt since Pitt joined the ACC in 2013. All 8 games between the 2 teams have been decided by 1 score. And as we mentioned earlier, this is UNC's 2nd straight overtime loss at Pitt in a row in their past 2 meetings there. Since UNC went on the road and beat Virginia Tech to win the Coastal in 2015, UNC has lost 5 straight overtime games.
Ooh, it's not good in overtime games. I'll tell you what, Mac Brown's teams are pretty exciting to watch in the 4th quarter. We've been in this studio going crazy for the Wake game, what other games? A couple other big ones have been close this season.
Virginia Tech.
What'd you say? Virginia Tech, yeah, that was crazy too.
No shortage of entertainment with him. That's going back 2 years now too.
Yeah, and I think you're at the point now, like you're supposed to lose games by a little bit, and then win games by a little, maybe lose a couple more, and then the next step is start winning them by a lot. So hopefully UNC's on that trajectory. Thanks for watching Inside Carolina Postgame Live, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Thanks to our sponsor, Blue Shark Vodka, smoothest vodka in the world, and Jimmy's Famous Seafood. Head to jimmysfamousseafood.com. Appreciate them. Thanks to Mike for coming up from Charlotte. We got Pat Stat, that was pretty cool, and producer John for Ross Martin for Inside Carolina. That's it for us. Appreciate you watching.